Winter doesn't bring snow to my doorstep. It brings him, like a frost that never thaws. He has rooted himself into the foundation of my life. He persecuted me when I was too young to speak, and he persecutes me still now that I'm old enough to scream. My name is Leo. For a long time, I viewed the world through the vibrant colors of a sports fan, the deep blue of the Mavericks and the royal blue of the Giants. But a decade ago, during the holiday season, the only color that mattered was the dead, matte white of the Texas snow and the void black of a stranger's eyes. The labyrinth of concrete. It was December 30th, the height of the festive season. The American Airlines Center was a cathedral of noise and light. I was 6 years old, a small figure lost in a sea of giants. During halftime, while the air smelled of stale popcorn and expensive beer, I stepped away from my brother to discard a candy wrapper. The trash can stood near a concrete pillar, a cold monolith in the bustling concourse. That's where he materialized. He didn't emerge from the crowd. It felt as though he had uncurled from the shadows themselves. A towering man, pale as a funeral shroud, stood over me. "Are you lost, Leo?" he asked. The use of my name, likely glimpsed from a birthday badge or a nearby conversation, acted like a hook in my chest. His hand didn't just take mine, it enveloped it. His skin was unnaturally cold, like marble left out in a blizzard. He spoke of an intercom, but his legs, long and spider-like, carried me away from the lights. We ascended. The roar of the crowd turned into a muffled heartbeat, distant and dying. We reached the highest tier, a place of echoing steel and exit signs that glowed like bleeding wounds. He led me toward a heavy metal door marked maintenance. He paused to check his phone, the blue light reflecting in his eyes like a predator's glint in the brush. In that silence, the stranger danger lessons from school echoed in my head like a frantic alarm. I wrenched my hand free. I didn't just run. I became a blur of desperation, diving back into the warmth of the human hive. When I glanced back from the safety of the stairs, he wasn't chasing. He was just waving, a slow, rhythmic motion that felt like a goodbye. The chasing shadows. The drive home was a blur of trauma I couldn't vocalize. My parents were singing along to the radio, oblivious to the fact that their son had almost vanished into the bowels of a stadium. Then, the peace was shattered by a discordant blast. A rusted, charcoal-colored truck roared up behind us, its high beams blinding us like twin suns. When it pulled parallel to our car, the driver's side window rolled down. The man from the arena was there, his hands steady on the wheel at 70 miles per hour. Beside him sat 3 other men, their faces obscured by the darkness, mere silhouettes of malice. They didn't look at the road. All 4 of them kept their heads turned toward our back seat, their stares heavy and suffocating. My father shouted a curse at their road rage, but I saw the truth. They were marking their prey. The flashlight and the flyer. That night, I woke to a rhythmic tap-tap-tap against the glass. At first, I thought it was the winter wind or a branch. Then, a beam of light cut through the dark. It wasn't the warm, soft glow of a night light. It was a harsh, surgical white. The man was standing in our garden, his face illuminated from below by a heavy-duty flashlight, making him look like a theatrical demon. He was staring directly at my bed, the light focused on my eyes. I shrieked and ran to my parents, but by the time they looked, the frost on the grass was the only thing left. "A passing car," they whispered. "Just a nightmare," they promised. On New Year's Eve, the doorbell rang 5 minutes before the ball dropped. My parents opened it to find a man in a heavy coat, holding a stack of papers. He claimed to be looking for a lost dog. I stood at the top of the stairs, paralyzed. I recognized the voice. It was a gravel-filtered rasp that had lived in my nightmares for days. My parents took a flyer and thanked him. I tried to tell them, but they laughed it off. "Now, everyone looks scary in a hoodie," they said. They didn't notice that the lost dog on the flyer had its eyes crossed out in black ink. The final omen. A year passed. I had almost convinced myself I was safe. Then came the following New Year's Eve. I walked to my window to close the blinds when I saw it. A piece of yellowed parchment taped to the exterior glass. The handwriting was erratic, the ink thick and dark. It read, "The calendar turns, but the debt remains. This new year, you'll meet me again. Beneath the text was a small, hand-drawn map of our house. The permanent winter. I am 16 now. My life is a series of bolted locks and heavy drapes. Every New Year's Eve, while others celebrate the future, I sit in the center of my room, away from the windows, listening for the sound of boots on the porch or a tap on the glass. I'm supposed to go to the Cavs versus Mavs game in a few weeks. It will be my first time back in that arena. But I know that the stadium isn't just a building. It's the place where a shadow first touched me. And I know that no matter how many years pass, the man who knows where I sleep is simply waiting for the clock to strike 12. The arrival of the note changed everything. For the first time, the overactive imagination of a child had left a physical scar on our reality. My father, his face turning a sickly shade of gray, peeled the parchment from the glass. The tape left a sticky residue that seemed to attract the winter dust, a permanent smudge on my view of the world. When the police arrived, they didn't find a monster, but they found the breadcrumbs of a predator. One officer, a veteran with tired eyes, took the lost dog flyer my parents had kept in a kitchen drawer for a year. He laid it on the table next to the new note. Under the harsh kitchen light, the connection was undeniable. The erratic, jagged pressure of the pen was identical. But the officer pointed out something we had missed. The lost dog flyer wasn't just a ruse. The address listed for the owner was a vacant lot, a cemetery for condemned buildings on the edge of town. They checked the perimeter of our house. In the frozen mud beneath my window, they found a semicircle of cigarette butts, all the same brand, crushed into the earth. He hadn't just visited, he had lingered. He had stood there for hours, a silent sentinel in the cold, watching the blue light of my television flicker against my sleeping face. The police report was filed under harassment and trespassing, but to me, it felt like a death warrant. They tracked the truck's description, but charcoal-colored pickups are ghosts in Texas, common and untraceable. The case went cold faster than the January air. Now, as my 17th birthday approaches, the symbols of my childhood have been perverted. A basketball isn't a toy. It's a globe of orange leather that reminds me of the stadium's orange-tint emergency lights. The new year isn't a celebration of beginnings. It's a countdown to an anniversary of terror. I've become a student of the shadows. I've noticed that every year, around the third week of December, a specific car, a nondescript sedan, parks at the end of our cul-de-sac. It stays for exactly 10 minutes, then vanishes. Is it him? Or has my mind finally succumbed to the perpetual winter he planted in my head? The tickets for the Cavs versus Mavs game on January 2nd are sitting on my desk. They are a test. My parents want me to reclaim my life, to prove that a 10-year-old shadow has no power over a young man. But as I look at the seat numbers, I realize they are in the same section where I was taken. I find myself obsessing over the lost dog flyer again. I realized recently that the ink used to cross out the dog's eyes wasn't just a marker. It was heavy, textured, and slightly metallic. I've decided I'm going to the game, not to enjoy the basketball, but to look. I'll be scanning the nosebleeds, searching for a tall, pale silhouette against the concrete pillars. Because the most terrifying thing isn't that he might be there. The most terrifying thing is the thought that if I don't find him at the stadium, it's because he's already standing in my backyard, waiting for the ball to drop and the lights to go out.